Winter air swept into my bedroom lazily, stirring me from an agitated sleep. My sheets clung to me, begging me not to get up yet. Opening silently, my eyes blinked the sleep away as pale gray light fluttered in from my sheer curtains. My leg caked in sweat. I breathed in the lazy winter air in a feeble attempt at wicking it away. My body was hot, tired, and achy from the day before, what I would give for a day off. Another day in paradise. Rubbing my stubble absent-mindedly, I let out an exasperated half-yawn, half-groan. Shit, it's gonna be one of those mornings, huh? Pushing myself to sitting, I fumbled for my phone on the bedside table, staring back at my unkempt facial hair and hollow point eyes on the black screen. This is gonna be a bitch to get off. Whatever. I'll just have to budget a little more time this morning. Nothing that hasn't happened before. Tossing my phone absent-mindedly onto the pillow, I swung my leg over the side of the bed, the sheets rustling in protest. My gnarled fingers found my crutch, pale light probing into the just as gnarled wood grain like a patient on an operating table. My crutch, my cane, my discarded piece of wood, whatever you want to call it. Solid, comfortable, unobtrusive. If nothing else, at least it could get the job done. My fingers found their familiar handhold instantly, as if growing into it themselves. How comforting. I groaned as I stood, letting the ache in my joints marinate for a moment before trudging to my wardrobe. My wardrobe, a sight for sore eyes, and how sore they were. Open. The wardrobe complied eagerly, a ping ringing out as its brass handles met the dry mahogany some would call a wall. My wall. It might have been considered strong, even stately once. Eaten through by age, however, it seemed to drain the life out of the room, desperately attempting to rejuvenate itself. You aren't gonna have much luck here. The corners of my mouth curled up gently, a smirk threatening to smear across my face, only to sink at the itchy reminder of my patchy chin. I faced the inky, clothing-filled depths before me, still unwilling to start the day. As if nudging me onward, the once lazy air slithered up my back before perching itself in the decorative curlicues atop the wardrobe. My eyes flitting in contempt, I relented and hung my crutch into the hooks I fashioned from one of the wardrobe's two perfect doors. My left leg balanced my wiry frame as I shifted my attention to the too perfect mirror on the opposite door, flexing instinctively to keep me upright. Time to rip off the Band-Aid. With a swift motion, my fingernails burrowed into my jawline, pulling my skin taut like a fishing line. Once my fingers found purchase, like the corner of a fitted sheet, they slipped my current face off with a wet schlup. Sucking in through my clenched teeth, I winced as I adjusted to the dramatic temperature shift, that winter air greedily burrowing itself into my now exposed form. I wonder if this is what it feels like after you shave. With the sleep chased off momentarily, I tossed the face into the wardrobe's maw, leaving it to drown in a sea of clothes and other accessories. I stared into the mirror, ensuring I didn't leave any bits behind. I've gotten pretty good as time went on, but it's like peeling a potato. Sometimes you miss a few spots that you have to go back for. I painstakingly combed through my shadowy form for a few minutes more, cursing my decision to go to bed before taking it off first. Once I was satisfied, my milky black form staring back at me from the too-perfect mirror, I sifted through the wardrobe aimlessly. I'm probably just gonna have to change anyway. I don't even know why I bother. After searching for what felt like hours, I bit my thumb with a titch. Brow furrowed, I hopped back to my bedsheets cushioning me in delight. Should it be a dress today? Suit? Too many decisions. I laid back, stretching myself as wide as possible across my ocean of bedsheets. I make enough of those as it is. Agitated, I grabbed my phone off the pillow, hoisting myself up once more. Whatever. I can just come back and change if I don't like it. Digging through hangers of freshly laundered clothes, I retrieved a simple gray pleated skirt, a black button-down, and a plain gray headband. A single black flat sat neatly at the foot of the wardrobe, a white frilly sock tucked inside. Good enough. I freed my crutch from the wardrobe, lifting my shoe with the snubbed end like a drunken claw machine. I dropped it onto the bed robotically, my duvet swallowing it with a huff. I eased onto my bed for the second time this morning, my mind running thought experiments on how to avoid facing the day. I closed my eyes, clearing out the thoughts, my face tightening as my hands took initiative. They slipped my sock and shoe on expertly, my calloused foot somehow putting up less resistance than the rest of me. Maybe defeat started in the toes, gradually eating its way through you until it completely devours your willpower. It would make sense why I could barely feel my foot anymore. Wonder how long until it's satisfied. Maybe it already was. Tucking my crutch back under my arm, I shuffled toward the door. A backpack hung haphazardly on the handle. Propping my crutch for a moment, I tested the weight, reluctant to look inside. To my surprise and relief, it was lighter than I anticipated today. At least that means less traveling. I took a hasty count of the faces within, remembering I had yet to apply one this morning. 13. Less than yesterday, still more than I'd like. My fingers strummed through the assortment of faces, deciding on a younger woman's face with modest makeup. I took my headband off, smoothed out the face over top of my shadowy form, tucking in all of the sides and flattening out the creases, and replaced the headband through the newly sprouting auburn hair. After adjusting to the new skin, I ventured out to work. Hopefully the overnighters aren't unbearable like yesterday. Shutting the door behind me, my phone immediately springs to life. Hello, here's what you missed. 138,206 overnighters, 20,255 active, 10,330 predicted suddens, 17 prayer requests, 0 favorites, 1 missed call, Vivi. Groaning, I shifted more weight onto my crutch as I tossed my phone into the bag, eager to get the day over with. My hallway sounded especially terrible this morning. A mildew petrichor cocktail burbled out of the damp floorboards like a geyser pit, black mold gnawing away at the ceiling tiles like a teething baby. The tiles wept milky white puddles in reply, the hallway ensemble belching out a disgusting hymn of rot. Ah, tile, you old bag! You look like mold's breastfeeding mother, trapped in the symphony of filth. Cry now while you can, little mold. Add your voice to the choir. Shuffling through the hall, fighting to keep my own voice from joining the performance, my hopes were silenced at the assault on my freshly plastered nose. Soupy and viscous, The combination of waterlogged floorboards and rot-infested walls inevitably forced dry heaves into the noise, bile coating my throat. The crescendo, little mold. Listen, the serenade to a new day is here, and you're all that's left. Collecting myself, my eyes stubbornly fighting back tears, I passed my office doors to reach my parlor, soulless and quiet, my parlor. 2 rusted iron chairs and a wrought iron table sat in solitude under a shoddy glass chandelier, with an equally shoddy kitchenette cowering in the far corner. A smudge-ridden black kettle, stale biscuits, and a mini-fridge stood at attention as my eyes flicked over them contemplatively. The essentials. Just like the bedroom, where once lived an appreciable parlor, existed a dilapidated husk. Though, despite the color fading from the baby blue kitchen tiles, pieces of decorative iron spouting from the chairs like bullet wounds, and light straining to pass through the algae green skylight, it did its job. Neglected and unthanked, it continued to serve, day after day. I'm sure you're begging for a day off too, huh? Tea! The kitchenette yelped to life, burners hastily spouting ethereal blue flames in a frantic attempt to comply. Kettle, frothing at the spout, belched out waves of angry steam as the day-old tea within bubbled to life. Eyes taking inventory of the neglected sitting space, I gingerly tested one of the chairs, tucking the backpack into one of its wrought iron wounds. The chair creaked angrily, its metallic joints buckling lightly under the sudden weight. In retort, the bag nestled itself into the chair hole almost comfortably, the faces within shifting to accommodate. With cautious satisfaction, I sat my crutch sideways across the faded burlap, ornamenting myself in the neighboring chair. The arrangement looked like an awkward first date, my disheveled complexion scowling at the wood grain in drowsy indifference. My crutch acted more like an old crotchety husband, though. It creaked beside me wherever I went, long since accustomed to my bitching. I straightened my spine against the chair back, careful to avoid any thorn-like iron sprouts. My search was interrupted by my screaming kettle, though, swelling to its grand finale. I acknowledged the kettle song, absent-mindedly picking at the phrase in my hair, a stray thorn pricking me in the back. Almost mockingly, my fingers whisked the air as I angrily fought to flatten the chair back behind me. In apprehension, the kettle floated silently toward the table, the shrill whistle gradually subsiding. Like a sleepwalker who's been jolted awake, my kettle's journey stopped with a clattering against the wrought iron tabletop, my ears wincing at the noise. I investigated the temperature with the back of my hand, a char-black coffee mug resting sheepishly alongside the kettle, seemingly apologizing for the rough landing. Guess I'm still not warmed up. My fingers cracked, a haze of concentration enveloping me. The invisible force returned. Hefting the kettle in unsure anticipation, my hand posed authoritatively. Tongue slipping from my mouth, I willed the kettle to pour, my hand guiding the kettle like a brush on a canvas with a new fresh tea stain on it. At least some made it into the cup. I sighed in resignation. My hand relieved the kettle of its duties, a stream of earthy sweat sliding down from its spout. Maybe I was never warm, come to think of it. My smirk reemerged, the unshaven beard on the other face unable to stop it this time. I allowed it to linger a moment, almost hoarding the sense of contentment for as long as I could. Just as quickly as it arrived, though, my body slipped back into the familiar sense of numbness once again. My body. A grime-covered bag of flesh, nothing more than a shell for my shadowy black form. What that form is, I've never known, nor could anyone tell me. Living shadow, maybe. In any case, a body was more practical anyhow. It was heavier, sure, but what it lacked in dexterity was made up for in familiarity. I had decided long ago that the shadowy me wasn't what people needed, even if my poor facsimile of a body is unsightly to say the least. My bones suffocated around lithe muscle, wiry black body hair, and a poor excuse for skin wrapping around them like paper mache. Even my ribs threatened to breach my torso if I breathed too deeply. Like a canary trapped in a bony cage, my chest rose and fell with wheezy chirps, my emaciated features allotting only what was absolutely necessary to still be considered body. I don't remember when I started taking on a body, let alone preferring one. Just like my parlor, it ached, stretched, cracked, and even broke sometimes. But it did its job. Maybe that's why I stopped taking it off at the end of the day. The monotony of constantly replacing my face felt Herculean. Despite its fragile appearance, though, I rarely had to replace my body. Of all the decisions I made, my body never felt like one. Besides, what grotesque opinions my body reinforced were quelled by some fresh-pressed clothes and an all-too-human face. Peering out from my thoughts, my ache-laced fingers ran over the rim of my mug aimlessly, smudges of dirt peeling off against its warmth. Sprouting from my calloused hands like weeds, I strained to remember the last time my fingers themselves had been replaced. Years? Decades? They always end up the same way, though. My cracked lips dragging me from my thoughts, pursing with indignance. I brought the mug up slowly, a fresh belch of hot steam erupting from the tea. Smooth, warm, earthy, satisfying. A good brew this time. Now, if only it would stay that way. As if to humble me, my leg muscles cramped suddenly, constricting my leg bones like a python. My eyes flew open in panic, muscles hungrily choking the life out of my femur. Mug crashing to the table, my tea jettisoned out in a wide arch, seeping into the splintered parlor floor. My skirt caught some of the tea, flattening itself like a safety net, while the bag and my crutch lay dry. My eyelids clamped shut, dulling my eyes' panic while my hands flew to my leg in a desperate plea to calm the muscular beast. The beast was unsatisfied, I decided, as it slipped its grip tighter. Massaging the folds of its coils, I coaxed it to release its bony prey. In the midst of fighting back a pained groan, my eyes bulged open as the muscles relaxed, the beast finally sated. A labored breath ripped loose from behind my clenched teeth, beads of sweat forming at my temples, the sudden frenzy already smudging the bits of foundation. Once again, remind me I dress up nicely at this point? My thoughts never get a reply, try as they might. In childlike uncertainty, my mug righted itself behind the kettle, nervously waiting for its scolding. The scolding never came, though, as I craned my neck back in a long, defeated exhale. What I would give for a day off. I sat for a long moment, silence drifting into the parlor. The light from the ceiling now wandered about the parlor languidly, long shadows creeping up from the table like dogs begging for scraps. My hazy, tired eyes ignored their begging, glancing at my crutch-shaped spouse for any sign of acknowledgement. It never bothers to console me, though. How rude. I inspected the sad remains of my mug, a few surviving drops of tea staring back. My skirt mattered against my thighs, more hydrated than my mug at this point. I calculated how long it would take me to hobble back and change. Maybe I could just restart the day, go back to bed, wake up fresh, brew a new batch of tea, and start the day on the right foot. I quickly rejected the idea wistfully. It's not like I could wake up any other way. Too annoyed to acknowledge my own joke, I let the wistfulness subside, pushing myself to stand with silent effort. The silence remained steadfast, desperately attempting to bring peace to the morning. Much to its dismay, though, I downed what little remained of my tea, my swallow cutting through its defenses. "Well, you weren't much help, were you?" I muttered, shooting another accusatory glance at my crutch. Silence. I jabbed a knobby finger at him, half gesturing to my tea-soaked skirt. "You're lucky you know, being dry and all. I probably don't even have time to change before—" As if interrupting, affirming my assumption, the backpack buzzed in reply. My eyes downcast, I stretched awkwardly across the rusted tabletop, fishing my phone from the bag in solemn resignation. It yelped to life once more. "Hello, overnighters have been congregated. Would you like to continue? Could you at least try to be late for once?" The time blinked back at me in reply, a white 08000 lighting up my face mockingly. "Yes," I relented, "it's always too cheery." Silence. "Okay, one moment." Silence. In a flash of light and dust, my office doors clattered open noisily, a fresh puff of air mingling with that of the stagnant hallway. Time for work. I clicked my lips in distaste, my crutch slipping comfortably into my left armpit in support, sleepiness returning to claw at me. With consternation, I trudged laboriously out of my parlor, the kettle and mug tidying themselves obediently. The now open set of double doors were all that separated my feeble attempt at relaxation from a miserable day, and my apprehension was palpable. Light poured into the hallway from my office's maw, the interior seeming to swallow shadows before they could even escape. An event horizon for shadows, and I'm the lucky bastard whose shadows refused to leave. The backpack felt heavier now somehow, clinging to the small of my back alongside my sleepiness. I attempted to straighten my headband with my free hand, my auburn locks refusing to cooperate as I ventured into my office. My office. If my wardrobe was a sight for sore eyes, my office was a sight only a newborn's eyes could handle. Or, well, maybe that's just my jaded frustration talking. A long room with just the one set of doors and no windows, my office existed in a kind of liminal hell, polished hardwood floors spanning the ground like a decorative ballroom. An ostentatious chandelier dominated most of the ceiling, thousands of tiny glass-rimmed picture frames glittering like a gaudy ofrenda disco ball. None of the frames had photos inside, though, sending unnatural shadows across my sleek oak walls. At the end of the floor, opposite the doors, stood my impossibly pristine desk. Wooden curlicues inlaid with golden trim danced across the front of the desk, coalescing into a large decorative M in the center. With hardly any ornamentation on top of it, it stood solemnly in front of an expansive bookshelf like a witness stand, waiting for another story to be laid bare. The shelf itself was dotted with an astronomical number of knickknacks, an eclectic mix of everything from wooden artist dolls to black wool sock puppets. Bits of dust clung to most of them, the books themselves tucked away behind them, silent and forgotten. I wondered when the last time any of them were even touched, let alone read. Probably since the knickknacks started piling up, huh? Forcibly satisfied with my hair, my hand relaxed gently, a figure already waiting for me at my desk. An older man, maybe 60s, turned sharply at my sudden entrance, a tuft of graying hair cupping the side of his gravel-marked face. A lavender robe hung loosely around his plump frame, his matching slippers tapping a nervous hole into my office floor. His fraying wife-beater spouted loose pieces of thread around the collar, bits of curly gray chest hair mingling with them. His most provocative feature, however, was a garish crimson blood splatter painted on his belly like a giant red balloon. Pieces of drying pink flesh clung to the cotton of his waistband, a steady stream of tar-black blood tracing a line from his checkered boxers to his grass-stained knees, finally pooling below him like swamp water. If below was the swamp, then his face was the ogre. Liver spots marched across his pink forehead like ants, his hooked nose sporting thin red scuff marks, his only remaining eye twitching haphazardly like a hummingbird, purple bags underneath it contradicting his panicked alertness. Strips of yellowing flesh clung to the other eye's socket like a party blower, the cave-like socket itself dripping milky pink fluid lazily onto the man's bushy gray mustache. Shh, they're supposed to be more cleaned up than this. Whatever. I'll just have to spend extra time between overnighters, like always, what I would give for a day off.